Hello everyone, welcome back to Out of Spec Guide. I'm Max with my friend and colleague Coleton from the Out of Spec Detailing channel. Hello.
How you doing, Max? Good.
Doing great. We got two Model 3s in your shop, Coleton. Neither of these are clients. Both of these are your personal vehicles. And so as I understand it, you've been leasing this white Model 3 for a while now.
Yep, just about 2 years, almost on the nose.
Nice. And you wanted a Model 3 Performance for several reasons, which we'll get into in this video. But instead of waiting for that new, exciting, Model 3 Highland refresh, as it's been codenamed, that we learned about for the European and Chinese market, coming to the US soon, you decided, nope, I'm not going to wait for that. I'm going to buy a Model 3 Performance new now.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, some interesting factors that we're going to talk a lot about in this video. Not only the refresh design versus this one, but importantly, pricing on the new 3s.
All right, Coleton, so first off, you mentioned that it just financially made a lot of sense for you to get this 3 Performance now. Why is that?
Yeah, Tesla is giving a ton of incentives right now. So as we all know, these cars have started getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So let me just give you base price MSRP of this spec. So this has essentially one option on it. So this is a Model 3 Performance. This does have the white interior, $1,000 option. This paint is a free option. If you were to get a white, which is funny, at the time, this was actually the free color. Now this is the free color. So of course, I'm just the cheapest Tesla driver out there getting the free color. But this car was essentially $53,240. Now, on top of that, Tesla is also doing inventory vehicles, meaning that they had builds already pre-selected and they are now discounting the prices on those. I think a lot of that coming with the new Model 3 Highland or new Model 3 refresh coming out. So this car out the door was $48,000. So taking nearly another $5,000 off this car. On top of that, here, being a small business owner running this business, taxes are a huge thing that I need to consider. So we have a $7,500 federal tax credit, which I'll take advantage of this year. And on top of that, in Colorado, we have another $5,000 state incentives on these. So the price point of this just really pushed me in this way. Taxes are changing next year, of course, on new vehicles, so I needed to consider that. It sounds like Highland or the refresh Model 3 is not coming until 2024. So my big push was, okay, I need a car this year to capitalize on those taxes, and it just pretty much all worked out in that way. So 48,000 minus 12.5, so you're in like mid 30 range for a Model 3 Performance. To me, it's just like, okay, value proposition, this is really hard to not go for right now. Now, I will say, if you guys are interested in purchasing cars right now, interest rates are a little wild, so you definitely need to take that into consideration if you are looking at cars. I don't necessarily know what that's going to do, of course. Nobody really does, but that is definitely a factor.
Yeah, I believe for those purchasing or financing the car, Tesla does usually some kind of fixed interest, but it's gone up recently to like 6% or something.
Yep.
Still going to be better than, depends of course on your bank and situation, but I think Tesla's always offered decent interest. It's just the state of the economy right now, interest rates are higher. That's going to factor in more and more as you finance more expensive cars.
You can get pretty much any of these. Of course, take advantage of the tax credits. You do have to stay under that 55,000 cap. So interesting, when I wanted to actually purchase a Model 3 Performance, I wanted the identical spec, a white on white. Puts it over by $240 of that $55,000 cap cost on it. So I was like, okay, that paint is definitely not worth essentially $11,000 or $12,000. So I was like, okay, can't do that. Decided on Midnight Silver and absolutely love it. But not only the financial stuff I was, concerned about with purchasing this new car. The big thing Max is trying to ask me, why didn't I wait for Highland? Well, one, finances. But number two, there's a few things, one or two things specifically that I don't love about the new refresh Model 3. One of the biggest things being a new stockless steering wheel. So we of course know that Model S and Model X have recently gone away from having full stocks. For me as a one-handed driver, it is so frustrating to have the buttons on the steering wheel to change lanes. I just, in all honesty, kind of end up not using them, which is not a great excuse, but it is very frustrating for me to use, and these just make it a heck of a lot easier. Now, do I think having the drive selector stockless is a bad integration? I actually don't. I find it to be very easy in the Model S or Model X. You just swipe up on the screen, I think it's a nice integration, but for me, the blinker situation is kind of a no-go.
Yeah, you don't even have to swipe up, as I understand it. It'll like guess as well, right?
Yes and no. So Model S and Model X do that currently. So if you're basically, say you're facing this wall and it thinks you're going to back up, when you put your foot on the brake, it'll go, okay, we're ready to go into reverse, and you can select it and go. So you don't even have to touch anything. Really cool implementation. I just think the turn signal indicator for me is very, very tricky. Like I said, I drive my friend Kyle's Model S Plaid around quite a bit, and I just go, okay, no turn signals for me in this car.
At least in that car, the powertrain's quick enough, you don't even have to worry about it.
I hate to say that, but it really is, because then I'm literally having to take my hand off the wheel, indicate here, look, and then go back and forth, and it's just like, it's frustrating.
Yeah, big accessibility swing and a miss for Tesla, in my view, in that sense. Really big downside. There's some other improvements of Highland, of course, nicer suspension, it'll be quieter, there's that rear screen, there's some interior lights, and I'm sure all of those will be nice upgrades, but it sounds like none of those were compelling enough for you to ignore, the deal that Model 3 is right now, factoring in also that tax credit benefit.
Of course. Yeah, the tax credit honestly was the biggest deciding factor, and the stocks. Now, of course, there are some aesthetic changes that I have not actually seen the car in person. I really like to wait to see cars in person, walk around them and get up close to them and see how they look. I personally don't love the new front end of the refreshed Model 3, but I absolutely love the rear end. I love the new interior other than the stocks. And yeah, I think it's a good upgrade. Did I think it was worth upgrading next year, not taking advantage of tax credit and not getting another $5,000 off of performance? No. On top of that, we don't even know about the Model 3 performance now of the new refreshed vehicle. So that's another consideration. You can only get the rear wheel drive and all wheel drive. And on top of that, Max, we haven't even heard about it in the US.
Yeah, so a lot of unknowns, to be honest, with it going on. And some of those knowns, like you mentioned, the turn signal stock, are just instant deal breakers for you. For those of you watching the video who made it this far, you mentioned, Coleton, the tax credit changing next year. What's going on with that?
So from what I understand, and Max, you're probably more versed in this than I am, but it sounds like what you're going to be able to do is when you purchase a new vehicle, they're basically going to take that cap cost reduction off the vehicle. So say your car's $50,000, they're going to reduce it at the dealership by that $7,500 federal. We don't know what Colorado is going to do next year. So now in this situation, I have to wait to take advantage of those tax credits until essentially April of 2024, even though I purchased the car this year. Now, we also did the same thing with our Volkswagen ID4 last year. That helped us with taxes this year. Now, do I think this process of buying a new car every year to save on taxes is necessarily smart? Probably not, but I'm enjoying having new vehicles in here and making videos with them. So that is also a consideration with them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, people will say, everyone seems to cycle through cars out of spec like crazy. I mean, you run a detailing business, as I understand it. Because you're leasing this, you can't get out of this lease super easily. Yep. You're going to be using this car as a loaner or rental option for your clients.
Exactly. And I'll tell you guys from personal experience, I will never lease another Tesla again. This could be a whole separate video, but essentially I am a year out on payments on this car. So I have about 11 or 12 remaining, and I can now not even transfer the lease. You can't buy out the lease on these cars. So for me to just essentially walk away from this car, $9,600 today, to just say, okay, I'm done with it, please take it back. That to me is like kind of crazy. So I go, okay, let's continue the payments on this. This will become a rental car for my clients when they travel here from out of state, or if they're in state, they need another set of wheels to drive around. It's a pretty awesome setup to, have them bring their car in and have something nice and EVs to drive around, because I pretty much only work on EVs nowadays. So I think it all worked out pretty well. We'll see in the long run how it does, but definitely excited for it.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. The Highland, the refresh is going to be exciting, and I have no doubt once we get them in the US, you're going to have one very quickly on your channel that you'll take a look at the build quality of. We're going to have, coverage of it on Out of Spec Guide here as well. But thanks for joining me today on Guide, Coleton. People should check out your detailing channel if they want to, look into basically how to take care of their electric car, keep it looking nice. And I think, you've made initially, right, someone would say, oh, you should have just waited. But after hearing your reasoning, I think it totally makes sense, the decision you made. And hopefully that helps people who are in the market for a new Model 3 right now.